Hello there and welcome to the last Friday edition of Network, or rather the first Friday edition of Network Africa in the month of July. I'm Cynthia and we've got a great lineup for you. First up, 1 week after the Tunisia massacre, a ceremony for the victims is held in the resort of Sousse. Then the United Nations cries foul concerning the credibility of the just concluded Burundi parliamentary elections. And later on, the United Kingdom and France come up with a plan to deal with the Mediterranean crisis. They plan to send African migrants back home. Again, you're welcome to Network Africa right here on Channels Television. Now, a special ceremony has been held in the Tunisian resort of Sousse to remember the 38 people killed in an Islamist attack a week ago. In Tunisia, the Prime Minister of the country, diplomats and regular folk, as well as tourists, gathered on the beach to pay their respects. A 1-minute silence was held simultaneously in Sousse and across the UK, home to 30 of those killed. Authorities say they have uncovered the network behind the attack and are holding 8 suspects. Now, as we await the official announcement of the results from the just concluded Burundi parliamentary elections, the United Nations has some news concerning the credibility of the elections. The body says the parliamentary elections were not fair or free and human rights were violated. In Washington, the State Department also said the United States suspended several security assistance programs which it had with Burundi.
The members of the Council took note that communal and legislative elections were held on 29 June 2015. They expressed concern at the preliminary assessment that the minimum conditions for free, fair, transparent and credible elections were not met. The Council expressed their support for the ongoing role being undertaken by the East Africa Community, the International Conference of the Great Lakes and the African Union in seeking to address the crisis, and in particular took note of the fact that the East Africa Community Summit is being held on the 6th of July. Members of the Council are currently working on a further product in response to the briefing this morning. We have conducted quite a lot of
Well, we're joined from the Ondo State Capital, Akure, by election observer, Mr. Abiodun Ajijola. Mr. Ajijola, thank you very much for your time on Network Africa.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Now, the UN has announced what was already anticipated in terms of saying that the parliamentary elections in Burundi were not credible. What happens next?
Well, a lot can happen. It all depends on the leader of the Burundian president, what steps he takes. Well, these are just parliamentary elections. As you know, the presidential election is to be held on the 15th of July. And I guess that is also going to be much more significant. And the crisis in Burundi today is primarily because the president wants to run for a 3rd term. So I think the East African leaders that are having a meeting on the 6th of July will probably ramp up the pressure on the president to reconsider significantly holding the election on the 15th of July. So what I expect is that probably with the action of the US, which is probably going to, be quite severe for the Burundian government, and the East African countries having meetings and the summit on Monday, I think that we might have a postponement of the election, or the presidential election. It may not hold on the 15th of July. But on the other hand, if it does go ahead, then I think there will be serious consequences for Burundi. And in the long term, we might have a serious crisis, because already about 70 people have been killed and about 140,000 people have been displaced. And this is quite serious. So that tells you clearly that there's already a serious stage for some crisis or challenges.
Now, besides the security situation, in terms of what you've clearly told us, which is right, in terms of people leaving the country and having been killed, we understand from what the UN said that it's suspended several security assistance programs which it's had with Burundi. what more are we going to see as consequences, potentially, if things don't go the way Burundi has been advised by the international community?
Okay, yes, I think, you know, when it comes to international sanctions, they are placed on an incremental basis, not a huge blow at once. So the lowest form you usually find are travel restrictions and visa bans. So possibly you might also hear that some countries, especially maybe the US and some other countries, might place restrictions, travel restrictions or visa bans on some of the top leadership of the Burundian government, especially in the ruling party. Over time, if the elections do hold under these appalling conditions, it's possible that you will see stricter sanctions that have to do with things like restriction of aid or reduction of aid that would flow into the country. You might also find that certain mutual or bilateral cooperation that existed before might also be reduced or even stopped completely. Certain international aid programs which had been ongoing may not be renewed. So I think in the long term, if the elections do hold on the 15th of July, I think it will portend a sort of doom for the country. And I think the international community will review the case depending on the actions of the Burundian government.
Well, Mr. Ajijola, thank you very much. As always, it's been a pleasure having you join us right here on Network Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, in what appears to be an indirect statement in reference to President Nkurunziza of Burundi, the French President François Hollande is urging African leaders to respect their constitutional term limits amid concerns that some are prepared to risk political instability in order to cling to power. President Hollande was speaking a day after at least 6 people were killed in violent clashes in Burundi, where opposition parties are furious over the decision of President Nkurunziza to seek a third term, which they say is unconstitutional. This stretching of terms is nothing new, as Burkina Faso's longtime ruler, Blaise Compaoré, was toppled in the popular uprising last October after making a similar attempt to remain in power. Well, coming up on Network Africa, Britain and France plan to send African migrants back home. It's the latest move in addressing the Mediterranean crisis. Details in a moment. Please stay with us.